What's the Vibes Tribe? Welcome back to the Dream Small Business Frameworks. I'm Shayna of Shayna Creates, and today I'm going to challenge you. I have an upcoming challenge for myself next week, and I figured, why don't I invite my community to join me? So here's the challenge. The challenge is to produce one piece of content every single day. Now, I already incorporate this kind of language into my coaching, although it's not something that I'm able to do consistently myself. I think it's definitely more feasible to create a single piece of content every single day if you're a full-time content creator or if you have a team. Otherwise, let's be honest, to be consistent week over week of creating content takes committed discipline and a very tactical strategy because you have to prioritize your content. But I don't think that is impossible to do. It's very possible. In fact, the only thing that we need to do is have a tactical strategy and to prioritize it. And so I'm sharing today my listen framework that is going to help us to produce one piece of content every single week without anxiety, without overwhelm, and without the frustration. So by the end of this video, you'll have 3 simple ways to produce valuable, click-worthy content that at bare minimum, I hope can generate you some leads, if not generate you some sales. If you accept this challenge and you complete it, you'll also get a personal invitation into my workshop. Okay, so before we jump into the listen framework, let's talk about the problem between connecting content to a paying community. First and foremost, as an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur, in the very early stages of our business, it's so hard to consistently create content because we're wearing all the hats, right? We're in all the departments, the marketing, the operations, the producing the product or the service. We're literally in our business and we're in our business all the time. So much so that it's impossible to put all of our focus into one bucket. And in fact, we don't want to do that. We just want to be as efficient as possible while still delivering in an effective way so that our audience gets the value, whether that's from our content or whether it's directly from our products or services. Now, the other problem is that we absolutely have to produce content. Like, we have to take up digital real estate. We have to have a digital omnipresence in the content realm. As a business owner, it's literally free advertisement at this point where organizations and companies had to pay thousands, if not millions of dollars to advertise and to broadcast their brand, right? And we are in the time and a space where the barrier to entry is very low, such as YouTube, where you're watching this right now. We get to produce content as it pertains to our business, as it pertains to our products and services, and offer it to people as solutions, right? For free, for the most part. Now, will it always be this way? We don't know. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing this time to create as much content as possible on the back end, because content lives on. It becomes evergreen, or it's content that we could repurpose. So we have a house and a space where we can actually archive our content and keep it there so people long after the time that we press publish can go back and receive the value. Content is also the way that we build our community organically, and it's an amazing platform to generate leads, right? Because we might have our warm leads already, or we might have had clients from our friends and our family, but maybe they're not our recurring customer or our ideal customer at that, right? Like, sometimes family and friends are just trying to support. They actually don't need our solution over and over again. But trust me, your ideal client needs you and your product and your brand and your voice and your content. They need all of the things that you have to offer, and they want it. So while we understand how important content is, doesn't actually translate into producing the content. We still actually have to put out the content in order for people to receive the value, and we want to be as efficient as possible with it. So I've created the listen framework, and I'm going to test this myself next week. So no, it's not a tried and true framework that I have a bunch of reviews and testimonies on it, but we are in community together. We trial and error things together, and we share. We let each other know what works. A lot of the times we're not reinventing the wheel. We're actually copying that wheel and producing something similar. So we want to do things in community, because I always say we go faster and further together. So the listen framework, this is generally how I create content. I wanted to share this 3 simple step in how I create the outlines for my content all the way through actually publishing and posting it. All right, so the very first thing you want to do is to listen to a podcast or an audiobook. Now, why listen to a podcast or an audiobook to produce content? Oftentimes we get inspiration from our virtual mentors, coaches, and guides. So we want to listen to a podcast or an audiobook. External inspiration from experts and our mentors, right? It's amazing that we actually get to have virtual mentors and coaches for free, because YouTube University already provides thousands, if not millions, pieces of content on any topic that you wish to talk about. It's very rare that you will enter a space in which there's absolutely no type of content that is anywhere near what you're thinking about. And if there is, well, kudos to you for being the first person that's going to produce that kind of content. But for the most part, this is naturally a part of our self-development as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, right? We're already constantly reinvesting our energy into listening or reading or watching something that is going to inspire us into our next step, even if it's just into the next conversation that we're going to have, right? So Omar El Tokrakiri, sorry Omar, I always mess up your name, but no, I love you, bro. I listen to Omar weekly, okay? Whenever this man is putting up content, I listen to his podcast from the department. And I'm very grateful because his content, plus his guest speakers that he has on his content, is constantly inspiring me. And so I'm able to take a particular topic that I felt enlightened by, or maybe I wasn't thinking about, or maybe I was thinking about, but now we get to niche down and talk about one particular thing and go in on it. Omar helps people build their personal brand. So he not only talks about personal brand, he talks about everything as it pertains to business. So he has guest experts that comes on all the time sharing amazing and incredible advice that's like, I never thought of that. I should try that. Or, oh yeah, I remember, and that's a really good idea. And that's something that I want to share with my audience as well. And then you get to share that. Now, remember, we're not reinventing the wheel. And a lot of content creators actually encourage that we copy each other, right? Because this is not a rat race. This is not climbing to the top of the algorithm so that you're popping up on people's timeline more than anybody else, especially those who are experts in this field of content creation. This is simply about speaking to your audience, the people that's going to click on your content, and you want them to stay there after the click. And so it's super important. And so it's super important that we're taking the time to listen to our virtual experts and mentors, to also watch how they deliver their content, and then also to be inspired by the conversation that's a part of that content to create our own. All right, so number 2, the second step in the listen framework. You want to listen to your audience. Now, who is your audience? Because I'm assuming that when you hear the word audience, you're immediately going to think about your viewers on YouTube or whichever social media platform that you're choosing. Yes, viewers are a part of your audience as well, but so is everybody. It doesn't matter whether it's virtual or face-to-face, but your audience also consists of your family, your friends, strangers, new leads and prospects, clients. Anybody you can come across and have a conversation with is a part of your audience. And it's one thing to just participate in a conversation, especially when we're focused on responding, right? How are we going to respond to the conversation that's happening? Now, true listening is actually allowing that person to speak in full length, to understand what they're saying. Here's the wonderful thing about speaking to people face to face that I really enjoy, or maybe even over the phone. But face to face is something very special to me. But you get to actually see and hear people speak about their problems and how it also makes them feel when they speak about it, the intensity, the importance, and how critical it is to find a solution. And if they're not directly asking you for a solution, you get to now ask questions after listening to see if you can help them. So you guys know that I'm a fitness instructor. After my classes, I get a handful of people that comes up to me and then asks me something personal, something that is a personal goal to them that they want to achieve, and they believe that I can help them achieve that thing. So there is the audience that's directly going to ask so that they can get to a particular thing, or there's going to be a group of people who are going to tell you their problem, not ask you anything, but you get to then ask some follow-up questions to see if you can help them. With my audience that comes to me with direct questions, I make an offer right on the spot, and it doesn't always have to equate to money. A lot of the times it's to subscribe to one of my channels. That's why I was so surprised in the beginning of this to see that my fitness page, which I've abandoned for some time, but I'm going to revive because this is going to be a part of the challenge next week, is to just subscribe or to look at the content that's there. Okay. So not always right off the bat, it's like, well, hey, let's personally train together. And now we're trying to figure out schedules and money, right? That's not always how the flow is. I have to listen to what it is that they're looking for, but then I already know that if they trust me enough to ask the question, that they also would trust me enough to pay me with their attention, right? And pay me with their trust for what I'm going to give them, that there is value that's going to speak directly to their problem, which they just shared with me. And so that's one avenue that I'm able to take. I can just make an offer right on the spot based off what their problem is. Now, then you're going to have the person who's not going to directly tell you what their problem is, but they're going to tell you their experiences. And what we get to do after we listen to the problem is to ask the question, like, oh, we get to ask a couple of questions, right? Open-ended questions. Well, what do you think the solution to that would be? We get to ask our audience that directly. What do you think the solution to this problem would be? You even get to do this in your content. It doesn't always have to be face-to-face, and it certainly doesn't have to be with someone that you know. We get to ask the person, what do you think the solution is? Because a lot of times people already know what the solution is. Like when I talk to people who say that they know that they need to lose weight, and they tell me all of the reasons that they can't join the gym, they can't hire a personal trainer, they can't make any significant changes to their diet. And I ask them, so what do you think the solution is? And then they tell me they just need to hire a personal trainer, they just need to join the gym or to do X, Y, and Z. And that's okay. Or that they just need to find time within their They tell me that they just need to find time within their day, or that they need to change their schedules and X, Y, and Z, right? And then sometimes I even get to ask, well, how much do you think that would cost, right? And I even get a little bit of idea of what they may be willing to pay for a particular thing, or at least what they think. So then when I come in with my solution and my offer, I get to meet them where they are. And this is a concept that I would love for you to pick up. This is one of my favorites that I've uncovered in my listen framework, is to create an offer on the spot for that individual. You customize it right there with them by asking additional questions and already knowing the answer to what they're going to say, because you literally just crafted a custom plan, a custom solution that's just for them on the spot. Our family and friends are constantly voicing their problems. Instead of just listening and agreeing or just sharing your perspective, have you ever thought about whether you can actually solve their problem? Maybe some of you have, and that's wonderful. I just want you to know that if you haven't, you have the opportunity every single time you're in front of a person or in a conversation to listen to people who are telling you their problems, and for you to actually solve that problem. You can. You listen and you solve. And here's the final step in the listen framework. You want to listen to yourself. Pay attention to your own experiences and struggles and wins. If you had a challenge today, chances are your audience does too. And so your personal story equals relatable content right off of the bat. This is a conversation I'm constantly having when I'm doing my spiritual counseling, right? We talk a lot about managing thoughts, managing emotions, and how that contributes to our actions. And many times what really gets those individuals invested in the conversation and invested in themselves, therefore invested in the offer that I make later on in the conversation, is actually sharing stories, sharing my personal experience, struggles, and wins through a relevant matter in which they're sharing as well, allows them to see that, oh, this person seems to have went through something similar and has figured it out. And maybe figured it out is a very subjective way of mentioning a solution, but I want you to understand that when you share a story, but you also share how you've overcome that thing, you have now turned into the expert. You were already the expert, but now you're the expert in their eyes that is right in front of them, or the voice that they can hear, whether that's them watching relatable content or whether that's you talking about your personal story in person. You have now become the expert that stands right before me. I don't have to go here. I don't have to do my own research. Like, you still can, but chances are when a problem is bad enough, you want to solve it as fast as possible. And so when you can pay someone with your attention and pay someone with their trust, they're more willing to pay you from their wallets if you were to make an offer, because you already accomplished those two things just from sharing your personal story and showing your own testimony. So this works fabulously for me. There was a point in time before I was a fitness instructor where I was unhappy with my weight, and I've been able to achieve my dream weight and dream body over time. And so now I teach people how to do the same thing. And so I'm able to use myself as a testimony, yes, through personal sharing like this, but then also from pictures. And then of course I'll have client testimonials and reviews as well. But nonetheless, I was my first success story. So I still get to talk about that. I still get to show that. And I get to give people a repeatable plan. I could potentially help most people who are looking to lose weight. But had I been my dream weight with my dream body all of my life, not knowing any of the pains, the woes, and the struggles of being consistent with your workouts, giving up your favorite food, snacks, sugars, wine, whatever, or starting and falling off because of some other life matter like a change in a work schedule. I understand those struggles. And so I do everything in my power to remove those barriers for my dream client so that they don't have to go through the same struggles that I went through. They get to just execute the plan and the process that I provide for them and have faith and trust that as long as they follow through on this process, they will get to their dream goal. And better yet, if it's the same process that I use to get to my ideal weight, right? Because when my audience is viewing me, they're viewing my results from this process. So they want that result for themselves. So they're willing to go through that process because they can clearly see the result right in front of them, right? They have some inspiration, they have some external inspiration, and we want that. So I want you to listen to yourself. You're the expert in your field. Aside from just providing educational content, how can you relate more deeply through storytelling in your content? So we have your 3 steps. You're going to listen to a podcast, an audiobook, or you're going to do some sort of self-development, right? Continuously learning so that you can share that information or knowledge. Then you're going to listen to your audience. Pay attention to the conversations that you're in day to day. We are constantly talking to each other about our problems, and you're doing a disservice to that person by simply engaging in that piece without actually trying to help them solve it if that's what they're looking for. If they're looking for a solution, remember to ask those open-ended questions to get a sense of what will be feasible for them in that moment, and then create an offer around it if you're able to, right? So listen to your audience, whatever you have to do to create that, to collaborate, like yes, it needs to be something that you actually can do, right? But the idea is that you're always attracting your dream clientele. You just need to make sure that you're having the right conversations with them in order to uncover their problems and then give them the solution. And then finally, you want to listen to yourself. Your personal storytelling is equivalent to relatable content for your audience. Now, let's talk more about this challenge, because there's a few ways to deliver this content that we're going to get through one piece every single day, starting on Sunday. This is Sunday through Saturday. Challenge starts on August 24th and it'll end on August 30th. It's a 7-day challenge using the listen framework. You're either going to listen to a podcast, listen to your audience, listen to yourself, implementing the listen framework, which we spoke about here today. And you're going to create either a short form or long form video every day, not all 3, one of those 3, every day up until Saturday from Sunday. So shorts are my go-to because they're 60 seconds, they're easy. You just have to have a purpose for your short, okay? So what are you going to talk about? Whatever you're already educating your audience on, you're gonna take a small piece of that and turn that into a short, okay? Otherwise, you could produce a short form piece of content. Short form, I consider anything under 8 minutes, but above 60 seconds is gonna be short form, right? So for example, for me, I was listening to one of my prospects talk about how she wanted to lose specific fat. She wanted to target an area, right here, that usually bulges right over our bras, ladies, okay? So she wanted to know more about how to spot reduce. So we had that conversation about spot reduction, the myth behind spot reduction anyways, and then also what will actually be the solution to her problems if she was to implement it. And so for me, now, she's not the only one that experiences that. Many women do. I did. That wasn't something that I actually was looking forward to targeting. I knew that overall I was going to lose weight when I got on this journey, but it's actually pretty interesting to notice that has changed as well. So like, again, I am my own testimony to being able to spot reduce, and I can use that in my content if I wanted to, Or I could just have the conversation with her like I did, which actually took a little under 10 minutes. So I just repeated that same conversation on camera, and then I'm going to post it as my short form. And then finally, you can produce long form content. Long form content is anything above 8 minutes. So this can be where you set up shop, just like we here are now in this webinar, and we're talking on camera. And this is a before edits anyway, this is at least a 40-minute video so far. Okay, so that's a long form piece of content. Am I going to go back and edit this video? Me personally, yes, because I have time to do that. But if you do not have time to do that, are you willing to post that long form piece of content without having to do edits? Because edits take time, edits could be frustrating. I want you to know that you can do that. You can actually sit down with a topic that you're going to speak about with your notes right in front of you, like I have here with me. Okay, I have my notes in front of me. There's no hiding it, y'all. I want you to understand, we're entrepreneurs. We are delivering value. That is what's important to our audience. They want to know what the answer is to their question. They don't care about what you look like, what you got going on in the background. But look, if back there looks crazy meaning that is too distracting for your audience to pay attention to, and you know that because it'd be too distracting for you to even pay attention to as you're recording your video, right? So you can create a backdrop if you need to, if you know how to do that. If not, you can look it up. But it's not necessary. As you can see, I'm here in my room, which is technically my recording studio. I got a blur effect on so you can see and focus on me who's talking to you right now. I want you to know that you can do the same thing. You can set up shop. You can choose a topic and choose 3 or 5 things that you want your audience to walk away with at the end of the conversation. The other important part of that is if you have especially when you have a long form piece of content, you should definitely have an offer tied to it, whether that's just to obtain and meet more of your audience so you get their name and their email address so that you can reach out to them. Of course, you can ask them to subscribe, but you should have a purpose for your subscribers at this point. As a business owner, it's very important that we keep forefront of mind that we're constantly making an offer. Why? Because if we don't generate cash flow, we don't have a business. So you actually don't just want subscribers. You want your subscribers to turn into paying clients or customers, right? We want them to consume something from us, if not once, multiple times. So keep that in mind. That is just not about subscribers. So don't just tell your audience, yeah, and then subscribe and hit the notification bell and to watch this content, unless, again, you have a purpose for that, and that is your sole goal is to achieve 1,000 subscribers. That's perfectly fine. Otherwise, again, you want to make sure that you have a specific call to action that's either relevant to the content or that's relevant to your business that you are telling your audience to take action on in that content, especially the long form, right? You can do it for your shorts as well, or the short form content. But remember, you definitely want to do it as a piece of your long form content. You want people to stay engaged in your community. And furthermore, you want them to be a part of the business. All right, so that's the 7-day challenge. You're going to use the Listen framework to produce 7 pieces of content. And I have a workshop coming up, so you can join my workshop waitlist as well. I will show you in that workshop how to utilize those 7 pieces of content over and over again for the rest of the year so that you don't even have to create new content. You could just utilize the content that we create within the next week several times over, if that's more feasible for you. But just to say, there's no reason that you cannot produce content, because once you produce a piece of content, you literally have 4 other pieces of content. It's just about how you're delivering that value. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the workshop. So if you accept this challenge by clicking on the link in the description, it's only going to ask you a couple of questions, and that is to get you the rest of the details and the information on the challenge. Furthermore, I will also give you other listening options to add into your framework, because you should customize your framework. I want you to create your own framework that works for you so that you can teach someone else. So if you're interested in joining the challenge with me, all you need to do is click the link down in the description below. It's only going to ask you a couple of questions, which is going to be your name and email so that I can send you the rest of the details of the challenge in full. And then I'm also going to send to you my top 10 listen options, because this is my listen framework. It's important that you're customizing your listen framework to what works to your advantage. So I want you to know what your options are. So you'll get a full template of the listen options, and you could choose the ones that works for you, or you could trial the ones that works for you, especially during the challenge. Once you have completed the challenge, and if you've created all 7 days worth of content, I have something special for you, and you will find out more about that. But first, let's stick to the main goal. Let's get our heads in the game. Sunday, August 24th, we start with our Listen Framework Challenge. And I look forward to any of you who are willing to join me in this challenge, okay? Because we get stronger and go faster and further together. You already know. Don't forget, for any of you also who are looking to create and run a virtual event, StreamYard is an amazing option to use to run a live stream and a webinar. What I love about live stream and webinars is that it'll broadcast on multiple channels and platforms. So you don't have to go and post your content on one platform and then go to another platform and then post it there and then go to the next one. No, you just get to stream to a variety of platforms automatically. So you have content there just in case you don't get time to create and produce new content. If you would like to give StreamYard a shot, I have an affiliate link down below in the description box as well that'll offer you a $10 discount on your StreamYard package today. And as always, y'all, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. The next webinar is next Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, dream big in your dream small business.